Don't you love it when you can grab a few things out of your pantry and your fridge and make a delicious pot of hearty soup? That's exactly what I'm gonna do today with some cabbage, a few other vegetables, and some sausage. Welcome to the Salt and Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. Today we're gonna make a really easy and quick cabbage and sausage soup. So I wanna get right into this and get the pot heated up with a little bit of butter. So I'm using the Ninja Foodi pressure cooker and air crisper. You could use any type of electric pressure cooker you wanted, or you could do this on the stove. You would just have to simmer it in a pot for a little bit longer because we're gonna go under pressure. Short pressure cook time is gonna cook this soup perfectly. But if you're using your stove, just do a longer simmer. It's gonna be delicious. All right, the first thing I'm gonna do is add in my butter, which is a 1/4 cup of butter. Turn the Ninja Foodi on. We're gonna go to the sear saute. High is what we want, and we're gonna hit start. So the first thing I'm gonna do once I melt the butters, I'm gonna add in my sausage and my cabbage. So let me talk about those two ingredients first. This is just brats, okay? I think they're beer brats. They can be any kind of brats that you want or any kind of sausage. You could use Italian sausage in this soup. You could use breakfast sausage. You can use whatever you want. I kept the casings on and cut them into about an inch, inch and a half, probably an inch thick, okay? There's 5 links there, which is 18 ounces. And the reason I kept them in the casings is because when you go to bite into it after the soup is done, you get a little snap. And I just think that that is really delicious in this soup. But if you don't like the casings, certainly take the sausage out of the casings or use a different kind of sausage. You could use a ground sausage if you wanted. You could do little meatballs. That would be absolutely amazing in this as well. All right, so butter's starting to melt. We're gonna get in our sausage. Then I'll talk about the cabbage. And I should also mention right now, if you wanted to make this vegetarian, you absolutely can omit the sausage, okay? You can make the rest of the soup exactly like the recipe says, just omit the sausage. If you wanna do vegan, omit the butter, and maybe you might wanna bump up your spices a little bit, okay? Just because you're gonna be removing the spices from the sausage. But this soup would be absolutely delicious with or without sausage for sure. All right, so let's talk about the vegetables that I'm using and specifically the cabbage. So let me just kind of move these over here, move this here. So what I have here is one, I would say small to medium head of cabbage. It was about 3 pounds when I weighed it fully intact. But after I take the core out of the center and wedge it up, it's about 2 pounds, okay? So that's what you want for this recipe. And this is actually, like, I'm gonna tell you, I have tested this recipe with a half of a batch, not a full batch, because I wanted to go through that with you guys because I get questions a lot. What do I change if I double the recipe? Well, that's what I'm gonna do right now, today with you. So I'm doubling all the ingredients and I'm gonna walk through the changes I'm gonna make to the original well-tested recipe, okay? Then we're gonna find out how it turns out. I think it's gonna be absolutely perfect though. All right, so my cabbage. Now I don't wanna put it in these big of chunks because we're only gonna pressure cook a short period of time. So I'm gonna take them and break them down a little bit further. But I keep them together like this. I mean, they end up falling apart, but I keep them, you know, like in little chunks like that. That's what would you call them chunks? I don't know, but like that, okay? So they're about 2 inches, I would say. And I do that for the 2 pounds that I have and throw it in the pot with the sausage right now, and we're gonna get some saute going with that. I do that for 5 minutes. So usually, if I'm not doing a video, I'll prep the rest of the vegetables while this is sauteing. But I wanted to have everything ready so we could just keep moving forward. All right, so you can see the cabbage really fills the pot with this double batch. In fact, it was funny, Jeff just says, are all those ingredients gonna fit in there? And I'm like, yep, they are. So we're gonna let this go about 5 minutes, and we're gonna put a little bit of browning on the sausage down there, and it will wilt the cabbage, just a tad, not too much. So while that's going on, let me talk about the other vegetables that I'm adding in. Now, anytime you're making soup, that's the beauty of soup, you can put in and omit whatever you want. I mean, if you didn't like cabbage, you could take the cabbage out, go ahead with the rest of the soup, and then stir in some spinach at the end. That would be delicious. I have 2 sweet onions, and they are pretty big dices. So this is like, gosh, probably 2 inches or so, because I like it to be hearty. You could do them smaller if you want. It's perfectly fine. I'm just going to throw those right on top. And then I have carrots. I have 1 pound of carrots, and they are in about, I would say, 3/4 of an inch slice. Again, I'm keeping mine big because that's what I like. And then I have some celery, and it's the same size. Now, these vegetables will get soft during the short pressure cook time, but they don't get really, really soft. So if you want really fall apart, soft, on the verge of, mushy vegetables, you're gonna wanna increase your pressure cook time. All right, so let's go ahead and get those in the pot. Very full pot. This is the 6.5 quart, okay? So I just wanted to let you know that. So if you have the 8 quart, yours isn't gonna look so full. I don't want you to worry about, like, you're probably saying, oh, Louise, you're over the max fill line for pressure cooking. I am right now, but that's why we're doing this saute, because I'm gonna reduce the vegetables down a little bit. Now, if you're doing a half of a batch, you don't have to worry about that. I still sear saute for 5 minutes, but it's not because I need to reduce the amount of vegetables. That's because I've doubled them. That's why I have to reduce them a little bit. So I might go longer than 5 minutes. So there's one change. So if you're doubling a recipe, and you're using the Ninja Foodie, and you're using a 6.5 quart or an 8 quart, and the recipe usually comes halfway up the pot, but you're doubling the ingredients, and they're hearty ingredients, like these vegetables, then you're gonna have to make some changes if it calls for sear saute. Or if it doesn't, if it just says add in everything and go under pressure, if you're too high, and you're over your max pressure line once you add the liquid, you need to remove some. And you can do that very easily. Add everything in, toss it around, and look at it. And if the level's too high, say, oh, whoops, I better take out a cup or 2. And that's all you do. Just take out equal amounts of the liquid and the vegetables that are all mixed up. Take them out, go under pressure. Then you can do a couple of things, because you're definitely going to reduce your vegetables as they cook. So you could cook those extra vegetables separately, or you could not add them in at all, or you could add them in at the end and then do a little sear saute. But your vegetables would be cooked differently. You'd have softer vegetables and harder vegetables, which sometimes is a good thing. Sometimes that's great for texture. So that's one change if you're doubling a recipe. You want to make sure that your ingredients fit. I'm pushing the envelope right now, that's for sure. But you know what? It is going to be just fine. So what I'm gonna do here is toss this around. I wanna get some of that cabbage on the bottom and move the sausage up to the top so that I can wilt some of it. And now it's time to add in the seasonings. I'm gonna do that right now. So let me go ahead and tell you what's in there. Again, I'm doubling the seasonings from the original batch. So I'm using 2 teaspoons of fine grind sea salt, 2 teaspoons of black pepper, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, and 2 teaspoons of basil leaves dried. And I've thought about this a lot. I've thought about just doing 1.5 the amount of spices, thinking that, oh, am I gonna do too much? And that's a consideration when you're gonna double a recipe. Are you gonna put in too much spice? Well, guess what? My rule of thumb is always go less, you can add more later. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna mix this up, and I'm only gonna add in about 3/4 of it. And then I can add in the rest at the end if it needs it. So that is another consideration. Sometimes you don't have to double your spices. So let's put in about 3/4 of it. That looks good. And all right, we are pretty much now at the max fill line with our solid ingredients. Now, I don't worry too much about the solid ingredients. I'm really worried about the liquid. So I'm gonna go ahead and start adding those in now. I've got some browning on the sausage, so that's nice. That gives that extra yummy flavor. All right, I'm putting in 4 cups of chicken stock, or broth. It's actually broth. Put that in. It's gonna quiet the pot down quite a bit, and we want that liquid to now start warming up. So we're gonna give it another little stir here. And then I'm gonna add in 2 cans of fire roasted tomatoes. Each can is 14.5 ounces. So this is roughly 29 ounces of tomatoes diced with the juice. You can use regular diced tomatoes, okay? It's perfectly fine. Or if you want it spicy, you could use Rotel. You know, you can really change this up to anything you like. So we're gonna go ahead and put those on top. Then I wanted to talk about my peppers, because this is something that you may find really interesting. These are red bell peppers, and I had a lot of them. I dehydrated some. I used some in recipes. You know, I used as many as I could and dehydrated as many as I could. And finally I ran out of time, and I said, all right, we're just gonna freeze them. And so I had Jeff cut them all up, and he froze them because I had to run out of town. So he froze them, and I used them in the soup. They're amazing. So these are not something you would want to freeze and then use like in a salad, because they're going to be kind of on the soft side. They're not going to be crisp. But in soups or other things that you're going to saute, they are perfect. And you don't even have to thaw them. In fact, I'm not going to thaw them. So they're just in these chunks here, and they're frozen. I'm just going to take my knife and go right through and just sort of roughly chop them up, and then put them in the soup. That's it. So if you like grow your own, oh my gosh, definitely do this. And you can freeze jalapeno peppers too. All colors of bell peppers and hot peppers. You can just pop them right in the freezer. In fact, with jalapeno peppers and other like hot peppers, I don't even cut them. I just throw them right in the freezer whole with the seeds and everything. They're perfect to put into soups and different kind of things like that. With bell peppers, I do take the seeds out. You probably don't have to, but I cut them up and do it that way. All right, now, are we gonna be able to do this? Let's see. I've gotta reduce this pot a little bit. Oh my gosh. So if you wanted to make a double batch and you didn't wanna have to go through this trouble like I have to go through right now, you would definitely wanna use the 8 quart. If you have the 6.5 quart, I would stick to 1.5 times the recipe. And on my website, you're gonna see the recipe written for a single batch. This is a double batch, but my single batch was tested thoroughly, and I know it works perfectly. This one, I'm pushing the envelope a little bit. So we're gonna see. I know it's gonna be good though. All right, everything is well mixed now. All the liquids are in, all the vegetables, all the meat. The liquid line is down here, way below the max fill line, and the vegetables are sitting right at about the max fill line. So I've reduced them down just a little bit to make sure that we're safe when we go under pressure, and we are good to go. Now this is a full pot, so let's talk through timing, because that changes when you double recipes, and it might surprise you at how it changes. So on the regular recipe, which is half of these ingredients, the pressure cook time is 2 minutes with a 10-minute natural release. That worked perfectly. The cabbage was tender, but not real soft, which is the way that I like it. So it was perfect. But now I've got double the ingredients, double the liquid, and it's gonna take longer to come to pressure. So if I was to go under pressure for 2 minutes, which would be the same as the single batch, I might overcook my cabbage and my vegetables, and I don't want that. So actually, when you double recipes in volume like this, it is common to need to decrease your pressure cook time, and that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna decrease my pressure cook time to 1 minute, and I'm also going to decrease my natural release to 5 minutes, okay? Because I don't wanna overcook the vegetables. So let's go ahead and get our pressure lid on, and let's get under pressure. So the test batch took probably, I would say, maybe 8 minutes to come under pressure. So I'm gonna have Jeff time this, because I guarantee it's gonna take a little bit longer to come under pressure because we have so much more in the pot. All right, let's go to pressure. High is what we want. We're gonna take our time down to 1 minute, and we're gonna hit start. Make sure the valve in the back is to the sealed position, and now we just wait. Once that 1 minute pressure cook time is up, I will do a natural release for 5 minutes, and then I will attempt to release the pressure. But if I see like liquid coming out, then I will just seal it back up and wait a few more minutes. So it took 14 minutes for the pin in the back to pop up, and then another 6 minutes for the countdown to start. So that is 20 minutes of time to pressure, which is cook time because the pot's hot and boiling and cooking the food. The original 1 batch recipe takes 8 minutes. So that is why I changed the time. Bump back on the pressure cook time. Probably could have even gone 0 minutes, honestly. And then we're gonna do a shorter natural release. And hopefully that's gonna work. Now the shorter natural release doesn't always work when you've got a full pot of soup because you may have some spraying out of the broth and things like that. So I'm gonna just wait, see what happens. We're at our 5 minutes. So let's check it out. If I've got a lot of like brothy stuff coming out, I'm just gonna hit it right back to the seal and go for the full 10 minutes. Looks good. All right, there we go. The pin has dropped. Now it is safe to open up the lid. Always do that away from you because it's going to be very steamy still. So I like to just sit it right like this and deflect the steam away from me for about a minute or so. And then I can open it up. All right, full pot of soup. So double batches pushing it in the 6.5 quart, but it looks good. It's got plenty of broth. It's beautiful. The sausage is cooked. Everything looks great. So it looks exactly the same as the single batch. So that's good news. Now it comes down to flavor. First thing I'm gonna do is just taste a little bit of the broth to see, do I need to add those extra seasonings in or not? We'll see. Yes, I do. Just a little flat. So definitely double the seasonings here and we'll mix that in. All right, everything looks good. It is up to the 18 cup mark, but it is well below the max pressure cook line. So if you have a 6.5 quart, you can do a double batch. That's no problem. If you have the 8 quart, you could do a double batch. No problem. If you have the 5 quart, you're gonna wanna stick to a single batch for sure. All right, now that we've added in those other spices, let's go ahead and scoop some out and let's taste the vegetables for their doneness. Are they softer than when I did the single batch? Better let it cool for a minute though, huh? All right, let me give it a taste here. I'm gonna taste a carrot first to see if they are the same consistency as the single batch. They're good, but they are a little softer. So if you like firmer vegetables, I would either stick to a single batch or take your pressure cook time down to 0 minutes. The sausage is good. Now that pepper that I put in frozen. Oh, it's delicious, but it's soft. All right, the cabbage. Now I'm not gonna get one of these thicker pieces because obviously that's gonna be a little bit firmer. Let me get some of the thinner pieces and see, because the single batch, the cabbage had like a little bite to it. And I really liked that. It wasn't super soft. So let's see. Perfect. So the only thing I would say is the carrots are a little bit softer. Other than that, everything is the same and it's absolutely delicious. So whether you want to make a single batch or a double batch, you absolutely can using the 6.5 quart or the 8 quart Ninja Foodie or Instant Pot, whatever you have. If you have a 6 quart Instant Pot though, you might be pushing it. Okay, that half of a quart is gonna make a little bit of difference, so you might want to shave off some of the ingredients. But with soup, you can do that so easily. Just take some out, just don't use it all, you know? So it's really easy to customize. I hope you give this a try, whether you make it like I did with cabbage and sausage and other vegetables, or if you skip the sausage, or you wanna put in chicken instead. Chicken will cook at the same time as the sausage, so you can certainly substitute that. It would be absolutely delicious. Or better yet, add in both chicken and sausage. Ooh, that's something that would be delicious. As always, make it yours, make it delicious, and keep it real.